Welcome to the Rebirthing Breathwork Summit, a free online event where you'll learn to integrate the power of conscious energy breathing to transform your mind, body, and spirit. Share this online event with your friends and family and join the conversation inside our Facebook group, Rebirthing Breathwork Summit. And now your host, Devendra Narayan.
Welcome everyone to another session in the Global Rebirthing Breathwork Summit. This session is called Breathwork, the transformation tool and how it helped me save my life. And our guest speaker is Matthew James Donnachie. Matthew is the founder of Inner Balance Live, a bespoke action therapy clinic in Surrey, England. Matthew has spent the last 12 years using breathwork for his own benefit, but also using it to help others transform their lives. Matthew has spoken internationally and was featured in What Doctors Don't Tell You magazine due to the amazing results his clients constantly experience. Welcome, Matthew.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Great to connect with you again. Really looking forward to sharing this evening.
So many times people talk about life-changing experiences, and you say in your intro, breathwork helps save your life. This is an incredibly powerful statement. Would you share your story with our global audience, Matthew?
Yeah, absolutely. Just wanted to add that nobody's had the perfect life, and I although I grew up in a wealthy family, I suffered a lot of abuse when I was younger. A lot of verbal stuff, mental stuff, sort of telling me I'm not good enough. And what adults are very good at telling you what you're good at and what you're not. And when you're constantly told you're not good at something, you naturally believe them and you start your own stories around I'm not good enough, people are better than me. And what I found is within my early childhood, with that imprint of sort of abuse when I was younger and that negative sort of mindset, took me into my teenage years where I was very, very lost. I didn't really feel as though I fitted in. It was like all the things I was good at were not recognized. So even though I excelled at sport and that was my huge passion, I was always told that's not a career. You need to get a proper job. You need to be good at academia to do well. So it was like a constant barrage of not being good enough. As we know, when you have the feeling of not being good enough, your own behaviors change, which only brings in more of the same sort of experience. If you think you're not going to do well at something, well, you're just going to get a lot of examples of that. So never really excelled, like I said, at school or anything like that. And had really never had anybody to talk to. And when you don't have anybody to voice to and to share that experience, it can be a very, very lonely experience. It's something, like I say, a lot of people go through. So left school, didn't really know what I wanted to do. The only real passion I had at the time was drama or performing arts. So I did a performing arts BTEC at college. And interestingly enough, when I look back at some of the things that I've done, what better thing to do to survive than acting? And through my 20s, I used the putting on a mask and happy face to get through. It was like that. You tell yourself you can get through it and just keep going. I found that was great for a certain amount of time, but there's only so much time or so long I could hide from my pain. Within my late teens, early 20s, started going out using recreational drugs. The reason I started doing that is I went to the doctors and sort of said that I was experiencing a lot of depression. I didn't feel sort of good. The first thing they recommended was antidepressants. Now, I'd seen my brother and a couple of friends go on antidepressants sort of a year before, and it was like it turned them into zombies, which in one way was great because they didn't have the horrible thoughts and perhaps the suicidal thoughts and things like that. But the trouble is they just didn't feel anything. So I tried them for about 2 months and just didn't like how disconnected I felt. And so stopped taking them. And it was like a rock and a hard place. So my anger started getting real, like I was a ticking time bomb. And I needed a release. And the crutch I happened to use was recreational drugs. It was that go out of the weekend, get out of your head and just party and have a good time. And then pretty much the Monday to Thursday, the following week was just getting by and earning enough to go out the following weekend. And it was like a savage pattern of 2 days a week. I would just go out and hell for leather. And that would be my release. Saw a lot of friends obviously going through the same sort of patterns with alcohol, drugs, and it's like we're all in the same boat. As the years went on, the pent up anger just became unmanageable. I did martial arts, which helped, but I was literally like a ticking time bomb. Suicidal thoughts regularly, just didn't want to be here anymore. I reached a point where I was working on a building site with a really good friend, Dan Hall, who's also a breathwork practitioner. And I hit my thumb for about the third time. You know, when you're doing a job and you're completely distracted in your head, and I whacked my thumb for the third time in a row. And I stood up on the roof, and in that moment, I couldn't decide whether to throw myself off the roof or the hammer. And I turned to Dan and I said, mate, I can't live like this anymore. Something has to change. I've tried therapies, I've tried antidepressants, I've tried all these things, and it's like nothing works on the feeling. I can change how I think, I can change some of my behaviors, but I can't shake this feeling of I'm not worth it and I'm not good enough. 2 hours later, I was in Penny Quell Pierce's office, who trained Dan Hall and also trained myself in Breath for Life breathwork. And I was doing breathwork for the first time. That moment changed my life. And I walked out of that office 2 hours later with a lifeline, and just knew that finally I'd found a tool that could work on the emotional. For years, I'd been trying to change my mindset, telling myself that I am worth it. I wasn't doing sort of behaviors that was showing me the opposite. So I wasn't like a criminal telling myself I was good. It really was trying to change the mindset of I am good enough. Just because I was told that when I was a child, it doesn't mean that they were right. So it was unraveling that mindset, but just didn't change how I feel. And like I say, that first breathwork session just completely changed my mindset. And one of the things that I really noticed about the Breath for Life technique that I use is it's not only working on the emotional, but it works on the physical and the mindset at the same time. So a week after the session, I rang Penny and I said, Penny, there's something missing. I can't work out what it is, but there's something missing. And we worked through it. And what it was is the voices, and when I say voices in my head, it's not other voices, but it's like statements that people have told you that will come out. And one of my patterns of that was every time I thought, oh, you can do this, Matthew, you could start your own business, you could be successful, you can have your own loving family. The first thing I would get in my head was, no, you can't, you're an idiot. And the reason for that being is because I was told that so many times within my early life that I actually believed it. So there was a part of me that every time I thought, oh, I could do that. Yeah, things could work out. There was another part that was, you can't do that. And that was missing. That literally disappeared. And my mind was blown from that point. It was just like, wow, this is it. I found my lifeline. And ever since that day, I've never wanted to do anything else. So hence I trained in the tool that I use, spent a lot of years working through my personal stuff before I even started training, just so that I could help others in the way that I'd been helped. I think one of my biggest frustrations about finding breath work was like, why is this not on the NHS? Why does everyone not have the opportunity to do this for free? And it's one of those, just because it's seen as alternative or holistic, it's not put on the NHS. So I thought, well, actually, I'll do that then. I'll make that my mission. Because had I have had that, a tool like that early on, my God, what a different life. However, at the same time, I don't regret anything that's happened, because I'm now an expert in child abuse, addictions, anger issues, and all the other things that I've been through and managed to work on myself. So it's like all your regrets suddenly become sort of celebrations. So many people don't make it through. And the fact that obviously myself and other breath workers do make it through, it's just such a transformational journey. And like I say, I wouldn't be doing this summit today if I hadn't found breathwork. I honestly believe I'd be off planet. So
it was incredibly powerful, Matthew. I love what you said towards the end. Regrets become celebration. And that's what you're celebrating, because you went through so much of this emotional, physical trauma that now you are able to help others, getting them through this path or through the journey that they are on. I want to dive a little bit deeper, because what you were describing just reminded me of the famous book by Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief, because all Bruce Lipton talks about is how what others have told us, or what's going on inside our head, especially during childhood time, where we are programming our subconscious. Then we kind of believe that subconscious mind, and then our body actually adapts to it. Our body becomes like the vessel for all the thoughts that we have been told. Take us through a little bit more. What is happening? And I'm looking at my notes here, how is that affecting on a very physical level, on inside the body? Somebody goes through, the thought turns to behaviors, and behaviors turns to physical patterns. What is happening inside the body?
I mean, what happens is because we're not taught when we're younger that emotion, there's an emotional part of ourselves, and that when emotions come up, we can feel them in the moment and they will pass. But what we tend to do is hold our breath and suppress. So when we're going through a traumatic experience, we sort of suppress it. And what you'll find is some of that we suppressed into the subconscious, i.e. sort of the emotion and the mindset. But also, if you've had a traumatic experience, especially with abuse, one thing I've found is that when people do breath work that perhaps suffered abuse, is they said sometimes they can feel the pain of where they were injured. And it's because we suppress into the body as well. One of the small side effects people get when doing a breathwork session is called techne, and it's like an energetic pins and needles. And what it sort of shows you is where we suppress pain into the body. And one of the things, which is a real interesting one, people find it really hard to let their pain go because it feels familiar to us, and it's like we've got comfortable with it. So like I say, when you don't feel an emotion in the moment and you suppress it, it can go deep within the body as well. So a lot of trauma is connected, and also with the memory as well, with PTSD is a really, really interesting one, because people store different memories and different pains in different parts of the body, which again is why I find it so effective, because it's sort of working on multi levels rather than just one at a time.
And coming to breathwork now, how does breathwork, in your experience, in your own journey, how has breathwork helped you deal with the suppressed emotion and the trauma? You mentioned something about feeling that emotion. So I believe the first thing is awareness, right? And breathwork is a wonderful tool to become aware. But once you get to that point, once you get to that physical sensation of that suppressed emotion inside the body, how do you channel that to the next level, which is, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I want to move past it.
Yeah, I mean, what the way we do it is often you hit a point where it's kind of like, I can't live like this anymore. And it's where we talk about this sort of like the two sides of self, like the conscious mind and the subconscious. So you've got the conscious mind, which is sort of 10% of your capacity, and it's connected, obviously connected with ego. Now, ego's great because it keeps us safe. However, before I did a lot of ego training, I in some ways thought I was a lot better than I was, and thought that maybe I was entitled to a few things that maybe I wasn't. And it's the part of ourselves that sort of tells us we're going to be all right, keep going, it's okay, you're all good, keep going. And that's the conscious mind. Now the super conscious is like the 40%, and I liken it to a library. So within that library, there's some fantastic books. It's your driving skills, it's your computer skills, all the things that we can't think about in the moment because it'd be too much for our brain to handle. So we suppress all that information into our subconscious. Now, generally speaking, that 20% is taken up by skills. The other 20% is like suppressed emotion, because every time, as I said, because we don't learn about emotions and how to deal with them effectively in school, we just keep suppressing them. And it's like we suppress it into the subconscious. And then the feeling people get when it's kind of like, I can't live like this anymore, it's like your inner librarian saying, we're full. We haven't got any more capacity for any more emotions. And this is when you'll find that people start spouting out. So people that will go into a shop and the shop owner will say, I'm really sorry, we haven't got your newspaper today. And they will just fly off the handle. It's like the world's ended. They'll insult the shop owner. It's just not good enough. And it's where they haven't got the space to deal with that emotional situation. There's no more room in the library. So it spurts out. Within my anger issues, it's why you see a lot of guys will have fights and you ask them afterwards, like, what happened? And it's, oh, well, he looked at me funny. Well, does that warrant beating each other up? And they said, well, no, but I just saw red and I didn't know, it just took over. And it's because they're not just feeling the slight annoyance that somebody might be looking at them funny. They're feeling all the anger that they've suppressed all at once. Because we find when we feel when an emotion comes in, it's like it connects with all of the emotion within you. And that's why people overreact. And there's no space between you and your emotional reaction. Again, because we're not taught it. So yeah, everyone overreacts. What breathwork helps you to do, in a nutshell, is it gets the conscious mind and the ego out of the way, just puts it in a room for a cup of tea for an hour, and connects you with your subconscious so that you can just unload and just let all those emotions out. What I love about the experience is people say, oh, am I going to be out of control because I'm in my subconscious? And it's like, actually, you're more in control because there's more of a percentage working on your side. So what breathwork does is it really helps you to just bypass the conscious mind and the ego give it a bit of a holiday, and just delve straight into the emotions and that heart intelligence that knows exactly what you need to unload to then move forwards. Also within that, people experience a visit to the superconscious, which is the part of intelligence that we can all connect to. It's where Albert Einstein says all of his information comes from. Looked into a lot of like the Teslas and that of our time, and they'll all tell you that the information they've got was not from their own mind. It was actually downloaded from somewhere else. And that's the superconscious. On my early journey, I never sort of connected with the superconscious because it was like had to do my work within the library before I could go into the universal library. But the more I cleared out the subconscious, the more I could visit the superconscious and you gain that soul connection, that what you're actually here for, what's actually real. Our minds are very, very good at working things out and judging or looking at problems and working them out. The issue with the mind is it has to have an answer. And as we know, there's a lot of things in life that don't make sense. Gravity, we can't see it, it's the most powerful force. Yet we believe it because we have to, because it's there. But when you think about it, it doesn't make sense, does it? So when the mind doesn't understand something, it will then try and rationalize. The issue with that is it's like picking at straws. It's telling yourself rational lies as to why this is happening or what that is, which is speculation. So we can run on our own mind speculation, which can be completely untrue. Yet that's what we're telling ourselves. Again, with the conscious mind, it tells us, oh, we're going to be all right. Everything's going to work out. Once we get that new car, or we get that house, or we get this, or we get that. And it's all based on when something happens, rather than actually taking action and just going, right, I'm going to do it.
I want to come back to that super conscious and talk a little bit more. But before we do that, because that's really cultivating your creativity, right? And that allows, hopefully that opens people's mind to the power of breath work, is to connect within and connect with that super conscious, where new ideas, answers can come in your life. But before we go there, Matthew, I come from the yoga world, right? And yoga world is, I'd say 70%, 80% women, and there's about 20 to 30% men who have picked up yoga practice. It's growing, which is very encouraging. But one thing that I personally have experienced through the practice such as yoga is how, as a man, I can handle the emotions. Like, it doesn't always have to be vented out in a certain way with anger and, words coming out of my mouth or my physical action. There are other ways of channeling that emotion or that anger that you have within. So especially men, young boys, there's certain words that are said to men and young boys that suppress their desire or feeling to channel that emotion in a healthy way. So could you talk a little bit about that? What teaching men how to channel emotions in a healthy, helpful way?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, here in the UK, some of the classic sayings we have is, we tell little girls when they get angry that, don't get angry. You're supposed to be sweet and beautiful and princess-like. So we're telling them you need to suppress your anger because that's not appropriate. And then we say to little boys when they start crying because they might have stubbed their toe and be genuinely hurt, stop crying, man up, come on, stiff upper lip. So automatically we're telling our children to suppress emotions. And believe it or not, we actually tell them to suppress their joy more than we do anything else. How many times have you seen a 5-year-old running around a room and they're picking things up and they're looking through things and their imagination's going wild and they're just having a great time. And then they're told, sit down, be quiet, because mummy and daddy can't handle this right now. We've got a more important conversation to have. And you think, okay, so that child is having fun, having a great time, and now I've got to sit down and be quiet because that's not allowed. Just that one statement that child is telling itself in that moment can frame their behavior from there on in. Now, especially for men, the thing I've experienced is how men can be empowered by their own emotions is to really feel them and not be scared of them. It's like, we're not scared of our anger because it makes us feel powerful. We feel vulnerable when there's tears or there's sadness because it's seen as weak, but it's not. I think if people really get that men and women, yes, in some ways we do have fundamental differences, but in many ways we're exactly the same. Men would say, no, women are more emotional. I would say women show their emotions more. I wouldn't say that we're any less emotional. And actually, a lot of men are like, oh, but we've all seen the film Bewitched, where the actor asks to be more sensitive. And he's this absolutely blubbering mess where everything's just so beautiful, he can't handle his feelings. And I think a lot of guys are like, oh no, because I'm going to become that guy. And it's like, it's really not like that. Let's remember that all emotions have a flip side. And the flip side of anger is passion. So why would you not want to integrate more passion into yourself? And actually, when you learn how to channel that anger into passion, my God, it's like people say, how would you sort of say to guys you could be more attractive to women? And my number one tip would be get in touch with your emotions, because there's no bigger turn on for a woman that a guy that's connected to his emotions and really embraces it. It's like, we don't have to be scared of being seen crying. It's not a weakness. It's something that we all feel. You could take the biggest, hardest sort of boxer. I guarantee he'd cry at a film. And it's like, we're scared of being what we truly are. It's like, again, it's sort of like breaking through the stigma of, oh, it's some big thing. And it's really not. We've ignored it for so long because it's like, oh, emotions. Oh no, I'll work on mindset. That's easy. It's like saying, oh no, I don't want to go down the gym and lose weight. Can I not just do it from my sofa? Because that would just be easier. And it's like, no, you got to get in there and deal with it. It's like, if you can get in there, you can feel it, you can heal it, and it really is that easy. So yeah, it's for guys, it's really connect with that. It's, if you asked women, if you could have something more from your husband or your boyfriend, what would it be? It would be more understanding. And how do we understand people more? Well, start looking inside, discover how you work, and from that you'll understand more how they work. So
that would be I love that, Matthew, and I'm so happy that you brought some some advice in there. So that should get some attention, right, of other men to attract women and be a better husband, a better partner. So now I'll come to the superconscious, because that is such a, if I look around now, everybody's talking about mindset, everybody's talking about tapping into their inner wisdom. And these are not new concepts. These are ancient philosophy that are being rediscovered now, where you gotta be in tune with your emotions, you gotta be in tune with your body to get the best performance out of it, right? To get the best performance out of the mind or the body. We know athletes are doing it, we know world leaders are doing it. So take us through the journey. I mean, how can somebody, you mentioned something about bypassing that ego into the subconscious and then through the superconscious. So take us through that journey, how breathwork will allow somebody to really tap into that superconscious state.
Yeah. So the first step would be, and it is very much a journey. When I first started using breathwork, it's like the breath is used to keep the conscious mind busy. So if someone asked you to concentrate purely on your breath and then asked you a simple maths problem, you won't be able to answer because your mind is going breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. So it's like it can't do two things at once. So that's why we use the breath to keep the conscious mind busy, to help you slip into the subconscious. Once you're in that subconscious, it's connected to higher self, that heart intelligence. It's the part of you that knows exactly what you need to do and what you need to deal with to move on. We don't know that part exists because we're used to being in our conscious mind. So it's like slipping into the subconscious. Once you're used to working with the subconscious, and I'm sure a lot of other breath workers will say this, within a breath work session, generally you'll find that people will slip from the conscious mind into the subconscious. They'll do some work around emotions, and then it's like they have a choice, and they could either do some more work on the emotions, or they can slip into the superconscious and have like a spiritually enlightening experience. find a lot of people that come round from breath work, it's like they come out with these ideas and they're like, oh, this is what I need to do with my business. That's where I need to take it. Everything's so clear. And it's like, it's where they've slipped into the super conscious, and it's like that all knowing sort of consciousness. And people come around and go, oh my God, yeah, I know exactly what I need to do. And it is that one consciousness. It's Steve Jobs would say that's where Apple came from. Einstein would say that's where his theories came from. One thing that always or doesn't surprise me about people like Einstein, it's like they were, and until their theory is proved, it's like they're insane. But as soon as that theory is proved, all of a sudden they're a genius. And I'm sure you've heard people say over the years, oh, I've got this amazing idea, and you just can't conceive it. You can't, I mean, if someone had come up to you in the 80s and gone, oh, I'm going to invent an iPhone and you're all going to be walking around with them, you'd probably think, yeah, that's interesting, but no. It's where we come up with these ideas that are 20 years ahead. And it is, everybody can tap into it. But what I found is, like, the more breath work I did and the more you get used to visiting the library, the more you get to learn the different sections. And then you realize there's an upstairs to the library. So you start using the stairs. Obviously, it's the space where often people go in meditation, where it's that pure connection. You can reach it within a good creative visualization. But the way to the superconscious is not using the mind. As crazy as that sounds, it's the level of consciousness. So it's going from the conscious to the subconscious into the superconscious. And with practice, you can just connect straight with the superconscious. It's not something I've mastered yet. It's all practice, but very much some of the ideas that I've had for my business have been purely, I wouldn't say my ideas. So channeled from spirit, from that one consciousness, from the superconscious. There's very many names for it. So, but yeah, it's a journey. And once you know the way, that's when you can start building the road, and you can just slip in and out. So when I first started doing breath works, it was sort of like an hour and a half. Well, now I can do 20 minutes, half an hour, but I still do the same amount of work, because it's just straight in there, do the work, and then sort of back out. So it's a really interesting journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said very nicely in that explanation, it's a practice. It's not a miracle, right? I mean, it could happen because one single sessions could have a very powerful impact in moving through trauma and, channeling that suppressed emotion that people carry around. But also have to recognize that it's a practice, and the more you do it, the better it gets, the more benefit you get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. One common thing you hear people say is, "Oh, I can't meditate because I just can't connect because of my third eye's calcified or whatever." And it's kind of like, I say to them, it's like, if you had never used your left arm and you tried to pick up a bag of shopping, do you think it would work first time? Well, no, of course it wouldn't. Whereas if you trained that muscle once a day, after a week, you'd probably find, oh, I can actually lift the bag now. And it is, you've got to see it as like that emotional muscle that you've never trained. And it is just working it. And the more you use it, the more familiar it becomes, and the easier it is. So, but yeah, when you first pick it up, it may not be as easy as you think, but it is just keep going, working that muscle and gaining that emotional mastery, really, for me.
So earlier, Matthew, you mentioned something about Breath for Life, which you have in the past told me it's also called the Bodhi Soul Breathwork. Would you tell a little bit about what this breathing modality is?
Yeah, so Breath for Life is it's a conscious connected breath technique. It was brought over to the UK by Penny Quell Pierce. Believe she trained, I think it was about 30 years ago in America. But due to, I think it was copyright laws or something like that, the name had to be changed. So it used to be Bodhi Soul Breathwork, which was Christina Thomas Fraser in America. But then obviously when Penny did her training there and then they wanted to expand and bring it over here, it was just rebranded as Breath for Life. So it's a specific conscious connected breathwork technique, which is specifically designed to get you in touch with your emotions. And it's just such a powerful tool.
So Matthew, it's just been a pleasure speaking to you today. I just want to take a moment to ask you if you have any practices, any big takeaways that you would like our audience to take from your session today.
Yeah, sure. Stop suppressing your emotions. And how do we do that? So if you look at any situation, generally, one for a good example is when you're in the car and you're driving down the motorway, and it's like someone comes up beside you and cuts you up. The first thing we do is we hold our breath, and it's like brace for impact. You're waiting for that bang. And when it doesn't come, what you'll generally find is people hit anger, and you might wind down the window, you might shake your hand at them, you might suggest that their parents weren't married, all number of things. What we don't do is realize what we've done is held our breath, we've felt the anger come up, the first emotion we feel is scared, because it's like, whoa, hang on a minute, you could have hit me, I could have been killed, my children could have been injured. But we completely skip over the scared and we hit the anger, and it's you did this, you did that. Now, if we just take a breath, so if you walk into a shop and somebody shouts, or you just notice, oh, hang on a minute, it's just be mindful of your breath. And I use the mouth just because it's easier for circular breathing. But it is when next time somebody cuts you up or somebody says something, it's literally take a breath. Don't hold your breath, because what that does is naturally suppresses. What you want to do is take a breath and just keep your breath moving, and just talk yourself through it and just go, okay, how do I feel right here, right now? Well, I'm scared because it's a brand new car and it's on finance and I haven't got the money to pay for it. If somebody smashes me up, my children are in the back and I've got to be to work and all of this. Okay, so you're scared. That's okay. We're allowed to be scared, and it's keeping the breath moving. Okay, how else do we feel? Well, actually, I feel really, really angry, because they didn't have to do that behavior. They didn't have to make me feel scared, like my life was on the line. Okay, that's angry. Do you think that person did it on purpose? Well, no, they probably didn't. So then it's just letting all the emotions that you feel go in the moment. It's just moving your breath will help you to feel it in the emotion and not suppress it. Emotions are energy. It's energy in motion, emotion. It should come in, we should feel it, and it should go. But what we do is we hold our breath and we hang on to it. So it's just moving the breath and just acknowledging the feelings, because something I used to do even when I was working in construction. When guys turned up in the morning, I would say, guys, how do you feel? And you'd have one guy going, I've had enough, mate. I've only been awake 2 hours and I didn't get my sandwiches. I left them in the fridge. I couldn't get the materials I needed. It's this, it's that. And someone else would sort of say, oh, well, actually, I'm really scared because I'm going through a divorce at the moment and I don't know if I'm going to keep my children and this, that, and the other. And someone else would go, oh, I've had enough of my wife. She's always having a go at me. There's this, there's that. And it's just let it go. And then everyone would go, oh my God, I feel so much better. I can actually go and do my job and be concentrated on the job, not what's going on and what's happened that morning. Because you just own how you feel and get it out. And again, it's a real another simple thing we can do is just checking in. How do you feel? Because it's not something we're used to doing. So just that little conscious breathing technique of just take a breath and just allow your breath to move and acknowledge how you feel. There's no right and wrong here. We're all emotional beings. And for me, it's kind of like, if you need to cry, go for it, give it 100%. If you need to get angry, do it in a place where it's appropriate. So if you get angry at home and somebody says something and you can't control it, go upstairs and take it out on your bed, because it's far better than taking it out on your loved ones. And it's what happens. And none of us mean to do it, but it's because we're not taught that we can do that in an appropriate place, in an appropriate way. And then you can re-engage with the situation without that emotional stuff up. Because otherwise you're just reacting on the emotion.
This has been an incredibly powerful, knowledge-packed session, Matthew. I really appreciate you being on the summit. How can people know more about you and your work?
So they could go to my website, which is www.innerbalancelife.co.uk. I've got a Facebook page, Inner Balance Breathwork. Also my personal page, Matthew James Donnachie, if people can't find the Facebook page. That's probably the best ways to connect with me. My email is innerbalancelife@gmail.com. So yeah, if anybody needs to connect or wants to connect, those are the best ways to do it.
Matthew James Donnachie, thank you, brother. I really appreciate you. Thank you for doing all this work and just inspiring the world and lighting the world with your own experiences and your story. I really appreciate and admire you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining the Rebirthing Breathwork Summit, brought to you by Cultivate Prana. To learn more, visit cultivateprana.com or rebirthingbreathworksummit.com.